And we're live. Hello, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. My name is Joe Boscus, and we are here with another episode of Divesoft Dive Talks Live, another part of our Divesoft TV series. This is episode number 22, and today my guest this week is the popular Italian diver, technical diving instructor, Edoardo Pavia. Eduardo's career as a diver has taken him all over the world to a number of virgin caves and undiscovered wrecks. And today we're going to talk about a lot of his expedition diving and, using rebreathers and the future of rebreather diving. All right, let's see if we can get him tuned in.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Hey, good evening. How are you today?
Fine. Very well, mate. Very well.
Great, great. And you're joining us from Rome, is that correct?
Yes, from Rome. Exactly.
That is
Very
such a
happy to be with you
beautiful
guys.
city.
Very honored after all the personalities that have been guested in your fantastic, how can we call it, web program or?
Yeah, it's like a TV show, but it's
Yeah,
internet now.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very lucky to be with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, great to have you join us. It's been such a journey. I think this is our 22nd episode, and so we have no intentions of stopping. So, we're very happy you could
Bravi.
join us this week.
Bravi.
Great. So, yeah. So, tell us back to your beginnings of where you're from and how you got started of your life underwater.
Thank you. I'm originally I should go climbing into the mountain. I was born in the northwest part of Italy, close to the Alps. All my friends climb or go, skiing or things like that. But I decided that I wanted to be a diver. So
Ah,
it was not really straightforward. My parents were in love with a south island in front of Sicily called the Vulcano, the Liparis Island, and they took us since we were really small. I started to go first spear fishing and chasing everything that was moving on the sea bottom until my mother one day said, "Okay, you can kill whatever you want as long as you eat it." That was the beginning. It was the end of my career as a spearfish diver. It's not really true because that was the career when I was a kid. When I grew up, this passion stayed with me for a long time. So I was, before of being a scuba diver, I was a free
mhm.
diver, and I started free diving in Italy, but more in Greece. Greece
Wow.
was really heaven, and I could afford to pay completely my bills in summer times just by spearfishing and selling the fish to the restaurant, which was not really good because the Greek were not happy at all. Uh, and, I, and I'm sorry, and I apologize with all the Greeks for what I did, but that was a long time ago. So my relationship with water started as without equipment on myself, and I still think that free diving is an art.
Right.
Today's obviously I just watch them and I just look at them. We have some incredible athletes from all over the world. They do things that it's just embarrassing. They go as deep as we
Spectacular.
go, or even deeper than what we go with rebreathers by breath holding, which is something that
Right.
sounds yeah really crazy. And so
Yeah.
my career started like that.
Like we were talking about earlier, that being a waterman is something it's like fading away in scuba diving. You have scuba divers that have been diving for 20 years, but they can hardly swim or they can hardly free dive. And so to integrate the two is something it's lacking, I think. And so,
Yeah, I think all the things that we human being have and we know how to do them for us are natural, and we can
mhm,
just spot the things that other people don't have. Like
mhm.
you're not able to do this, should be natural. So I was lucky enough, to have this sort of beginning, And now for me, it's natural. When I go on summertime with my kids, the first thing that we like is to just be in the water. Give us a mask without fins, even, just let us swim around, etc. So just by being surrounded by water is just for me and for my kids as well. It's just the is everything. So when you put your diving equipment on, is another story. But you must be comfortable in the water without anything. You must be, in comfort, as we say.
Right. Yeah, it needs to be an extension of your body. You need to be comfortable in the water without your gear and free diving. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so you kind of you moved on from free diving, and then started scuba diving, and then were you diving as an occupation, or
no.
What
I was actually training myself in the swimming pool for breath holding and things like that. But at that time, like, it was not like now that we have professional schools for free diving. There was not really a school for free diving. So I decided that I was going to take a scuba dive course, and that gave me the opportunity to train in the pool. At that time, the Italian FIPSAS, this is the name of the association that is associated with CIMAS, was sort of giving you the possibility to touch the tanks and the regulators after you had done at least 4 months of just free diving and just exercise in the swimming pool without diving equipment. And I remember when I saw the first guy from PADI, we felt like, what is PADI? And they were running the first courses, and at day one they had a complete diving equipment, and we were like, it's about 4 months that we are in the water here, and we can't even touch it, because we're not allowed to do this.
They're like, don't look at it.
Yeah, don't look at it. Like military service. You're not. It's not time for you now. Just go there and swim. So for us, it was that was the beginning. So I started scuba diving a bit because I wanted to be with some of other friends who were free divers, but it was the intention was not really to become a scuba diver. Everything just came and followed up after, and it's things just start like that. And probably my career really started when I got involved into Rebreathers. That's where my career as a professional diver, so trying to make a living out of it. Lots of my colleagues will probably be able to explain you that it's very hard to make a living out of it.
Fame and fortune, that's why we're all scuba diving, right?
Yeah, we are all very rich, otherwise there wouldn't be any possibility to be scuba divers. The truth is that.
But so with Rebreathers, I mean, you took a very formal course with lots of structure and everything, right? Top of the line units, or how did you get started in Rebreathers?
As I told you before, at that time I was really into traveling around the world. You are a marine biologist, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and I was really interested in fishes and life. Don't forget that being a free diver and a spear fisherman, I had to know how to approach the fish to kill him.
You have to think like a fish.
Yeah, and you have to start to think. People don't even think that, like, make you an example with predators like tunas or fishes like this.
Mm-hmm.
If they appear while you're on open circuit or rebreather or you're diving, the first thing that you should do is cover your eyes and just look in between like this, because a predator is capable of spotting the eyes of another predators. And it's the first thing that I look is like the way you look at me. Look at when we see on SOFA, National Geographic, and we see the shark there swimming around. Look how his eyes are looking. He's always looking at you in a sort of, okay, mate, okay, I know you, I know you. I'm here, you're there. We just stay distance one from another. So this gave me the possibility to really have some sort of relationship with the creatures that are in the sea. So I decided that every year I was going to spend some money, at least twice a year, to travel around the world. Papua New Guinea, Cocos Island, Australia. Very lucky bastard. The truth is this. and in one of these trips, this is the incredible story. In Papua New Guinea, I had the opportunity to go to the eastern fields There is a spot between Australia and in the south of Papua New Guinea, and there was a guy, an American guy, very nice. I still have his card of certification. He was from an agency, INTD. Never heard of it.
Oh,
Never heard of
trouble.
it. And he said, okay, you got your holidays, blah, blah, blah. The last 3 or 4 days, he said, 4 days, I think, he said, for a little bit or more amount of money, I can certify you nitrox diver. What? Yeah, I'll explain you about it. Have you ever used a rebreather?
Something, right?
Yeah, we looked at, no, we don't know anything about nitrox, and we don't know anything about rebreather. To cut the short story, the story short, he took out 2 dragget units, semi-closed units. He told us how to put all together. He was obviously putting everything together and checking everything, but he was just putting on the back of me and another mate from England, and we just jumped in the middle of nowhere, just in the ocean, and we were doing wall dives with these 2 units. And the guy just said, when you're about 80 or 90 bar, you start to come up. Never go deeper than 40 meters because you got nitrox 32. And don't flood this thing. No, water in, no good. You know, you have to breathe it in. We came back like, hey, this is the future. This is the future. So from this trip, I came back at home, back to Italy, and I started to go around all my mates and say, rebreather is the future. And people would say, what? Rebreather what? And I say, no, rebreather is the future. You know, it's there. There's nothing we can do about it. It will wipe out open circuit. You know, you have to think about this. And people thought I was crazy. And the dragger just went slowly in the backyard, and we forgot a bit until I saw the first advertising of ambient pressure diving, AP Valve, that was coming out with this Inspiration rebreather, and I decided that I wanted to investigate this thing. So I took the car from Rome and I drove all the way to Cornwall. And I took my fiancée at that time, and I just said to her, Cornwall is a beautiful place to go. Oh, by the way, on the way, we have to stop to a day and a half to this company. So I have to look at one thing, but, you know, Cornwall is fantastic. So that's how I got into rebreather, and that's how I met for the first time AP Valve, Martin Parker and his team, to whom I own everything I've done in the early days of rebreather. So, you know, I own them very much.
Yeah, I mean, they had such an influential role and like really kind of mainstreaming somewhat of the ECCR and whatnot. And so it's that's a you know, incredible start with that, and that led to, you know, you started your own company in 2000, Sea Dweller Divers, and then you started getting into. That's when you started really kind of moving into expeditionary diving.
Yes, I mean, it was the. I think that at that time, England in Europe, I'm talking about Europe. England was representing probably the peak of the mountains in terms of technical diving. The English were already doing really big dives, and this was probably possible because there was an urgent need of exploration, of deep wreck exploration, because England is just amazing, the concentration of shipwrecks that England has. We don't have to forget the empire was a great empire, 2 World War wars, and before that, you know, they had colonies all over the world. They were trading with the rest of the world. They are up to the north. They have bad weather. They have sometimes even bad character, so they don't go along with everybody. So they have shipwrecks all over. So it was like pushing the boundaries. These people were doing amazing dives, and they got to a point where the rebreather just meshed perfectly. So in the late 90s, I was lucky enough to meet Richard Stevenson, that was my instructor for AP rebreathers. And this guy was doing already some really heavy stuff, you know, from France. I went to Dordogne, where when at that time there were just really few people that went diving over there, and now Dordogne is like it's like Florida for caving, or Mexico for caving. You know, it's a very well known area now. All year round you have people. So I started to meet people that were doing big stuff, and so I was lucky enough to be invited to do this kind of stuff. Think about the Britannic expeditions. That's where I linked my face and those expedition because I think that Lee Bishop and I are probably the two guys that have had more expedition on it. Like I was lucky enough to go there 5 times. And it was like,
Yeah, it's incredible.
oh, that was, that's lucky, because permits, money,
Mhm.
logistics,
Yeah,
it's
it's
complicated. It's
so many
complicated.
moving parts to happen in order for it to happen. So to go so many times, that's you know, like I always say that the hardest thing about expedition diving is getting to the site. It's you know, the water portion is difficult in itself, but getting to the site, the logistics, there's so much topside work that has to happen for these events to be successful.
Yeah,
And so I
definitely,
can imagine
definitely.
with the Britannic ship being, all the permitting required and whatnot. It's a logistical
And, and, and,
endeavor.
and think about it. When at the beginning of 2000, in 2003, we did this big Britannic expedition that, from my point of view, was probably the one that produced more data and more information than any
Right.
other expedition. We were really successful in that expedition, and we at that time didn't have any data at all of the employees of this technology at depth for a long period of time. So we were
Hmm.
really walking, I'm not saying into a minefield, but now we know that the length of a cartridge of a filter does certain amount of time, and especially at depth can do a certain amount of time. At that time we didn't have all those information. Now we talk about ANSTI machines, we talk about testing. At that time, I know that some of the dinosaurs that are about my age, they know all about it, and it was really delicate to walk into those. But again, technology works like that. I mean, before us, Cousteau and Gagnon, they did certain things, and that's how things do develop in time. So I was lucky enough to be there and to really enjoy the friendship of people, because at the end of the line, what will remain on the table is the relationship between a human being, and that's what we have to preserve the much as possible.
Right. Right. It's there's there was so much happening in the late '90s and here in cave country with the cislunar rebreathers and the expeditions diving over there in Europe and the Britannic, this science and collecting the science is unique because of how it's able to stay in so much better shape than some other wrecks. And so that collecting that type of data is very important. And I know that you're not allowed to, or they don't allow penetration of the wreck unless you're on a rebreather now, because you have minimal impact to the environment instead of introducing oxygen into the shipwreck. So it's it's a very important it's important the equipment that you're using in terms of the science collecting, the data collecting, and the safety of the logistics of the diving.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's so
And definitely for ignorant people like me, who are probably good enough to be divers, when you work with scientists or with people like you, like biologists, we learn a lot, and that's very
much.
important. It's very good, It's I wasn't that good at school, but I tried to get a bit better after.
Well, you get to learn now, and as long as we're all students, especially those that I think those that teach technical diving, we see our knowledge, like the knowledge gap, the gaps in our knowledge, and so we see that it's important to be a student, especially if you're, if you have someone that can't dive, they're like, okay, you need to be able to identify, this is what I need, this is okay, this is not okay, don't touch this, touch that, and so
Yeah,
you learn a lot in doing that type of work.
that's why you put a picture with me touching something. Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry.
Oh, the but it's and then but like I always like to, because we have so many different people viewing from that have a lot of knowledge base with rebreathers and those that are just maybe scuba diving certified. How have rebreathers changed the way that this expedition diving is conducted?
Well, I think all the people that are following us, they are all probably well aware, and because they do it every now and then. But
Hmm.
Rebreather is certainly um, does allowed us to put the line of the limits much ahead of what it was with open circuit.
Right.
I must admit now, I used to teach, and that's the word, I used to teach a Trimix open circuit. I don't teach it anymore because I'm not comfortable anymore doing deep dives on open circuit. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that because you have lots of certification or you got lots of experience diving deep that you just throw a twin 20 on your back with all the stages and you go and you do a deep dive on open circuit. So I think that not only in terms of logistic, but in terms of from my point of view, obviously it's my vision, the safety of diving with rebreather has no comparison diving with open circuit, without obviously mentioning all the logistic, the costs of all this. Because when you do ask Lee Bishop when he did big expedition on the Britannic on open circuit, they were
Hmm.
they had big trucks of gas, you know, and they were filling gas until 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning for the people who had to dive the next day. So it was really a huge job, you know, and lots of complicated to organize. Nowadays we have people who can with a van and a well-equipped team do things that before requested an enormous amount of equipment, money, and experience. So I think that Rebreather have completely changed the way we penetrate the abyss, and that's the truth.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I've seen what a good van with a couple of K bottles and a good booster can do, and so yeah, it's hands down. It's so much easier logistically, and like you said, safer. And that's what the rebreather gives you. Is it gives you time,
I
and
think
so.
what we must say constantly for the
Mhm.
next I don't know how many years is what we know that is the weak part, the
Right,
human the human
the
factor.
human
And
factors.
yeah, and we all know that this gentleman has done a great work for all of us, and many others are getting the word from him now and going out there and spreading it. We are the weak part of the chain. So when people start to mention, oh, this rebreather brand is better than that rebreather brand, or this rebreather is better than the other one, okay, we can all argue about what I like more and what I don't like, but there is certainly one thing that we have to keep in mind constantly is that, you know, we are the weak part. And statistically speaking, apart from you, that I am the guest now here, we are old. We are old.
Mhm.
And because, you know, to buy rebreather and to get into this level of experience does take a bit of time and does take a bit of money. And the
Very
young
much. Yeah,
generation
big
are not.
investment. Mhm.
It's a barrier to entry this level of diving with this technology, with this level of experience. So people have to be committed if they want to rapidly access to this level of diving. But I'm positive because I can see out there that the new generation of divers that is coming up will definitely go beyond what has been done so far. There's no doubt about it, and this is natural. That's how things do go.
And you know, that's something interesting that we were kind of talking about earlier is how, you know, in the earlier days of the rebreather diving, a common theme that I always hear is that, like, oh, the rebreather would break every dive. There'd be something that would go wrong, you know, this piece, that piece, and we just adapted. You know, we recovered, but you know, it was they were not as reliable as they are today. And so now with the systems, they're more reliable than what, like, I don't, for there to be a break, I think in the on the units is like that's a major problem. And rather than it just being an inconvenience of the day, it's and so that the baseline has shifted on the expectations of how the unit should perform. And so,
No
you
doubt.
know, do you think long term that will create more problems? In it's like the technology has caught up. Before it was more experience than the technology, right? and then now the technology is giving us the ability to go beyond our experience level. And so
And
it's
yeah, it's definitely like you said when we were discussing before. I was saying in a sort of mean way that every time you were going diving at the beginning, you were really sure that you were coming back because
right.
I know this is a bit extreme, but there was this sensation, and I know some friends that were not really comfortable in using rebreathers because some of them had experience with other brands or other products that were not so nice. So when you get burned the first time, you don't really feel like being convinced by the next
Yeah, and you remember
fellow.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, you'll remember it, and your experience does mark the skin, and so when you say, look, man, I know how to dial an open circuit. I tried your beast machine, and I'm alive. I don't want to have another experience with another beast machine. So it was difficult at the beginning to convince people out there that rebreather was could do the difference. Nowadays, it's another story. It's we have the web, we have internet, we have TV, sorry, shows like yours on internet that provides a lot of information, that provides knowledge, so today people can have their opinion on one brand or another, or one model or another, but we are all aware that rebreather technology today has got up to a level that we can't say, oh, I don't trust that technology. I don't trust the people who are using that technology. I don't trust myself sometimes. So uh, we have to work, as someone has told us, on the human factor.
right. Yeah, we're gonna keep quoting Gareth on this episode today.
Absolutely, absolutely. He's a bloody genius, that guy.
Yeah, it's like and then now with more complicated systems, I mean, we'll kind of talk more about bailout CCRs and introducing dual rebreathers later. But the I find sensors that are old, and right now, people are having a very difficult time with oxygen sensors, and people are a lot of the diving community's been out of the water for a while, and there's supply issues, and there you have the temptation of to shift your baseline on what you deem accessible. It's a year and a half old. Yeah, I'm right at the line. It's okay.
They still work.
Yeah, they still work. Oh, 10 millivolts in air, it's fine. And so it's those it's like nothing happens, and then boom, something happens. I always tell this story. My little brother, when he first got a dog, he would let the dog off the leash a lot, and I would say, how many times does the dog need to run into the street and get hit by a car? Just once. How many times do you need to get bit by neglecting something on the rebreather that is breaking the rules, that something bad needs to happen? It just needs to happen once. And so it's right when you get on that line where you get tempted to bend the rules a little bit. That's where the accidents happen.
Absolutely. I think we all cross fingers for this shortage of oxygen sensors. By the way, not one company, but for all the companies that are involved in this with the rebreather technology, to hopefully to get ahead of this problem as soon as possible, because this it is potentially creating a critical situation for the people out there to, as you said, break the rules, and is not acceptable, but is comprehensible.
Right. And it's how often do we say, like, oh, there's no way anyone would do that, and people do it. So
So
getting
back,
getting back to the ships, to the Rex, the Andrea Doria. That's a ship that's been on my bucket list forever, and so tell me about your experience diving on the Andrea Doria.
The experience of the Andrea Doria has been a very delicate and dramatic experience, because unfortunately on our expedition, where Rich Köhler was the leader of this expedition and the organizer of the expedition, unfortunately we had a fatality, and there was, as you know, a fatality is one of us that is gone, and
Mm-hmm.
It's really bad to handle. I remember that during that expedition was my first time on the Doria. The Doria is not that deep, it's not that complicated, but it's far away from the coast. We have strong currents. We got two different currents, one from the Gulf Stream and the other from the north that's coming down, that brings water that is different in composition. One has more fresh water, the other one has more salty water. So when I dove, so that's my, I can talk about my experience. When I dove there, we had blue water on the surface, beautiful. Water temperature was really decent, 20 degrees at least. As soon as we got down to 10, 12 meters, we saw like a green stuff passing. There was a green river, absolute river, and this rope was just dissipating in this green thing, and the water was dropping down to 6, 7 degrees centigrade, and it was really cold. Visibility was low. Again, the wreck is really big. Current are strong, so you have to be careful where you swim. You have to be sheltered by the wreck, and so there are certain areas, at least that's what I've learned, that you should avoid. Unfortunately, we had this fatality, missing man. At a certain point, we alerted everybody, and Richika and I decided that we were going to have a try. There is this feeling sometimes, I think, in the diving community, that when you lose one of us, you have to try to do as much as you can to do your best to recover at least his body. And it was like really trying to find the needle in the open sea. This is the truth. And
needle in a haystack that's in the ocean.
Exactly.
And you have to be safe while you're doing it too. That's
we just decided to use the simple method as possible. We just go down the line, and at a certain point we just tie a line onto the rope, and we let us go with the current out of the wreck in the middle of nowhere. So we were swimming in the flow, just a bit sheltered still by the Andrea Doria. And at a certain point in the middle of nothing, we separated like 6, 7 meters apart from one another so that we could see the lights. And at the certain points, I saw a bunch of fishes, and unfortunately, our friend was there, and we did manage to find it. I tell you, if I think how we did find him, I still think it was because someone just guided us in the dark down there. So the Doria expedition, in terms of diving, was really dramatic. But the Doria opened up another thing in my life that was absolutely fantastic, because I find out that 2 years before the sinking, my grandfather and my grandmother took it to New York. And because I was passionate about finding as many information I could on the Doria, I bought a book, and I saw that there were some images of the Doria of a famous, I'm not going to say the name, famous Italian actress that was wearing a particular dress. When my grandfather and my grandmother died, we took all the personal effects out of their house, and I found a place where there were all the pictures of the Andrea Doria. I took the picture of the Andrea Doria. At that time, people were taking photographs, and you could buy them if you were interested after during the trip. So I saw those pictures, and I saw my grandfather all dressed up, in a very elegant way, with his hair very greasy, like this, smoking his cigars like this. Very proud. My grandfather was very small in terms of height. It was very, very short man. And he was dancing with this actress, and I did recognize that the dress was the same. Now, people would say, yeah, okay, the dress is the same because she has it in her cupboard, and so she takes it when she travels around. The problem was that I read the story on the book that was published, and it's a book that you can buy everywhere, with the picture of the Doria. That night, this actress was drunk and took a curtain out, a curtain to make dark, and put it around herself and did a sort of dress with that. So the possibility that this actress had that dress in her cupboard just disappeared in a fraction of a second, because that was coming from the furniture of the Andrea Doria. So I recognized, and I looked at the date of the picture of my grandfather's trip, and they matched exactly with the picture and the date of the book that they published. So I saw my grandfather, and this is how it gets now, the story gets really interesting. I saw that my grandfather was, because he was very short, as I told you, he was dancing with this actress that was having a big breast, and at that time, the line, of the dresses was, to show what you had, And so my grandfather was the third spherical things in the picture. So he was just dancing, but he was very elegant. But his height was there, and that happened with the Captain Calamai, the captain of the Doria, gave like that it was usual a night party the night before arriving to New York, and my grandmother kept a diary, and we did find this diary, in which she put all this everyday story of this trip. And it's interesting to note that for 3 days when they moored to New York, my grandmother didn't talk to my grandfather.
Because, I wonder why.
Wonder why? Because that night, she went to sleep around midnight. He appeared at 6 o'clock in the morning. So the reason why I'm not saying the name of the actress is because probably the family of the actress could argue that I'm just throwing garbage around, and it could be because I wasn't there. I just know that I did manage as an historic to put together things that my grandfather that night was there. So the Andrea Doria was in my family already, and so I was really fascinated by the story of this.
Just a personal connection with the shipwreck, and then to go and dive it, and to see it, to really visualize, to imagine the party and everything, Well, that's very special and unique. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an incredible experience what what the diving on these shipwrecks can do, and when we really learn the history of it, and then, like I said, with the connection of it like that, it makes it even, making it an even stronger connection. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that's the same year that I dove the Doria, I had the chance to be invited on what I know you like is the Victoria. The shipwreck in Lebanon happened the same year, and there are those years where you are lucky enough to, hey, we are organizing to go to the Doria. I go to the Doria. Oh, we are organizing to go to Lebanon. Do you want to come? And you feel like, hey, is this land this year or what? So the
good things happening.
Yeah, the shipwreck of the Victoria is one of those shipwrecks that you can't say anything there. Wow, it's an English battleship that is a vertical position into the seabed, and is not hanging against anything. So you're wondering, how is it possible that a battleship, so made out of steel with cannons and things like that, can just stay up vertical with the bow into the bottom of the sea and the stern with the propeller looking towards you, and there's no reef around it. There's nothing around it, so you feel like, hey, you're not telling me. You get a bit of narcosis. It's not true. It's not possible. But that's what Victoria is all about.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that sounds fantastic. And is it much? Is it deeper than the Britannic, or is it?
Oh yeah,
it must be very deep.
I hope that people that are always very, very how do you say, aware of everything will not bash myself, will not whip my back. But I think you touch the stern at around 84, 85 meters, and you can go down to the seabed, and you are just around 154 meters. But the cool thing is that you can concentrate and go into the deeper part of your dive that you have planned and do a multi-level. So you come up and you still have this wreck. So it's not like, okay, you dive the Britannic and is 20 meters above, 30 meters above the seabed, 30 meters above the seabed. So that's it. And after you have open water. In this case, you have this thing that is coming up like a tower, and you can
Mhm.
just go around, or even better, you penetrate inside and you come up
Mhm.
from the inside. I did some fantastic footage inside of the of Victoria, and fortunate to take some good images. And by the way, is the blue Mediterranean color. The visibility is always fantastic. We saw while we came up the line a school of tuna that was going around the wreck, because as you can imagine, this creates a sort of a microsystem of diversity of
Right.
creatures. So the big predators, the last bit of the chain, comes in and start to eat the little fishes that have colonized the shipwreck. So it's fantastic. What is incredible is no recompression chamber very close, at least at that time. I don't know today's day.
Mhm.
No recompression chamber. Military all over the place. Some terrorist attack at that time along the motorway that was connecting the place where we started with the boat with the capital of Lebanon. That, by the way, I want to spend a word for all my friends and brothers of Lebanon after the accident that occurred recently, that has completely destroyed the capital. And my
Mhm.
heart goes to them, because Lebanon is a fantastic, fantastic place to live. Is a fantastic place of people. So I hope to have the chance to go back soon, and I hope that this population will manage to have a bit of rest, a bit of peace after a long period of time, because they deserve it. They are fantastic people. So the place is fantastic, but the organization is complicated and difficult. So the shipwreck is worth every penny that you will spend to organize a trip over there. Just go and enjoy the beauty. I'm not sure how long you will stay vertical like this, because
Right. Right.
we know
Mhm.
that human structure have a certain duration. After that, they will collapse. So I hope you're still there.
Yeah. It's it's in so many incredible places and stuff. Since we've been talking to different people from all over the world, I just find all these places that like, oh man, we need to go here, we need to do this and stuff.
Yeah,
So it's
you
just
mark all the things that you want to see. Yeah, wish list.
right.
My wish
Yeah.
list. Yeah.
And then you've done an expedition to the Antarctic with it was an Italian expedition.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Antarctica, at least at the moment, you can reach it apart from some very expensive private trips. They are not
Mhm.
allowed really to go. They can stay on the first few islands that they allowed people to go. But if you really want to go to Antarctica, you must belong to a scientific expedition.
Right.
I hope the Antarctica will be preserved from industrial exploitation, because behind the door, this is the configuration that could appear for Antarctica. Exploitation of fishery, for example, as well. We know that there are some countries, I'm not afraid to say, Japan is one of those countries that is not really doing much effort to stop whaling in those and fish overfishing in those areas. Antarctica is a fantastic place. Is really Kirk to Enterprise. Is the last place on Earth that you can be. It is far from everything. It's difficult to get there. It's difficult to survive over there. And I was there many years ago, because now lots of many years have passed. 8 years have passed. It was in 2012, and already the effects of the climate change were sensible. And I can't believe after 8 years how things have changed. I still follow some friends that keep on going there, working every year, and they say that
Mhm.
things are sensibly changing. But getting back to my adventure to Antarctica, I think at that time we were between, let's say, some of the first people that were really diving, not into Antarctica waters, don't get me wrong, but they were
Mhm.
diving under the ice in Antarctica with a rebreather. In
Mhm.
2012, I didn't know of many expeditions that were diving with rebreather under the ice of Antarctica. and it was just, we took some fantastic images for an Italian TV program. Professor Roberto Palozzi, that was one of my students, was a veteran of the Antarctica, with already, I think, 3 campaign over there. That was the 3rd campaign that he was running, a marine biologist, and he was specialized in the Weddell seal, which is a specific seal, the Weddell seal that lives over there. So he did manage as a documentarist and as a marine biologist and as a veteran to convince the Italian Antarctica program to bring us over there. It's called PNRA, is Programma Nazionale Ricerca Antartica. Does organize with CNR all the logistic and all the campaigns for all our science to go there. And it's fantastic because over there is no flag, there is no religion, there is no color of the skin, there is just the scientists who are sharing knowledges. So people from a New Zealand base or a Japanese base or a Chinese base or an American base, Italian, French, all the nations, they just exchange places, and I come to your base and I do my experiments. So it's really fantastic to be privileged and lucky enough to go there and see people. So we were really the one that were disturbing the research and the scientists, because the only way that you have to go around in Antarctica are helicopters. And obviously we Italians, we don't have that much money. So we had 2 helicopters. And because when you move for long distance, you must have redundancy. You always have 2 helicopters. So we were, as journalists and divers, we were taking these 2 helicopters for all the time that we were sitting over there. So the scientists were like, when this bloody journalists take away, because, we need the helicopters to go there and do experiments and do things. So it was really, I was very lucky. And sorry, we did try the rebreather in very harsh condition. The water temperature in Antarctica is minus 1.89, and this is the scientific thing. So people say it's not possible, it's below 0. Yes, it is possible. It's salty water. So it is possible. And diving over there is serious stuff, because the water is really cold. We had what we called a fish hut. It was like a building, like a container with skis underneath, and you would just pull it around, just put it on top of the hole, and just diving over there. When the sun was good, you could just prepare yourself in this sort of fish hut and just walk out and jump into the water. The problem when you were coming out was that the counterlamps made of tissue and your dry suit, you had to be quick to go inside, because otherwise you break it, because you crack it, because it would just freeze on you. And we proved that there was no comparison in terms of thermal protection, diving with the rebreather with the same undergarments and diving with open circuit. 100 times rebreather against open circuit. An open circuit in Antarctica, you can have the antifreeze, you can put whatever you want. After half an hour, it will start probably to free flow, and there's nothing you can do about it. I got pictures of first stages of regulators that they are surrounded by a block of ice, and you see the first stage inside, and the guy was not doing anything dramatic, he was just doing an half an hour dive in Antarctica. So we saw that this tool is fantastic. The only limit of this tool over there is that scientists are not technical divers. They put this gear, and for them, it's just a vehicle to go there and do experiments. We must have these scientists that, if they want to approach and they want to have the advantages of this technology, they must spend time of their life to prepare. Otherwise, they can hurt themselves. This is a great limitation. Sorry.
And their priority is to get good science and to learn and write, and so the diving is very secondary. And
absolutely,
a very common theme with a lot of kind of the science diving that we used to do with NOAA and different work like that.
And by the way, all this science, they get the open circuit or advanced or whatever it is certification. in the Mediterranean, for example, when they
Oh,
go
the
there,
nice, comfortable water, right? Yeah.
you're talking about something completely different. And to give you an idea, I had a puncture in one of my dry gloves, and I had very thick stuff underneath. And I was filming some stuff that, I was filming the glass fish, and this glass fish was really collaborating with me. It was fantastic. So I felt that my fingers were getting cold and I could lose sensibility. But I said, 3-4 minutes max, and I'm going to get this shot. I have to do it, etc. When I got out of the water, I had two military guys. They were holding myself like this. When I removed my dry gloves, my hand was already not bluish. The point of the finger was already bluish color.
Hmm.
And they said, we must go like this and rub your hands for the circulation to get back. I
Hmm.
tell you, I'm a guy that can support pain quite well, but that was really serious pain. So diving in those conditions is very severe for the people and for the diving equipment.
Right, right. That I think it's the thermal impacts right now that I think are becoming kind of the biggest limiter in a lot of these long duration diving, especially deep diving, especially with multiple rebreathers. It's the common theme that I've been hearing a lot is that if you flood your dry suit, if you get cold, you know the doing your decompression while you're cold and whatnot, the thermal limitations are what's becoming the biggest limitations in the really long exposure diving. And so it's the
I, I
cold is something to contend with. Yeah.
I think that technology has to say the last word again here. I'm quite sure that in future we will see technology applied to the thermal protection of divers that will increase this aspect that, as you reminded, is still a weak part of our system. We have one, two, three rebreathers, we have bailout all over, etc. But if we punch the dry suit or if the water start to leak in, we don't have a bell, or we don't have an open bell that we can. Oh, we had it once on the Britannic. Nice
Mhm.
tool, nice tool. A bit expensive, but nice tool. It works
I
really
can
well.
imagine it. Yeah, in the ocean, the and the caves are nice because the caves are stable. The ocean with the currents doing a bell like that—that's a lot of work. The
Oh yeah,
but
a lot of work.
the and so like kind of getting into the technology, you teach a lot on the Liberty rebreather, and you've been using the Liberty as a bailout rebreather. This last 2 weeks, the Liberty in Detail episode has been kind of focusing on the bailout rebreather, kind of the functionality of it. What's your experience and your take on the Liberty as a bailout rebreather?
Well, let's put it this way. Being involved in some very deep and long dives since the beginning of 2000, um, it was natural before to have bailout in big quantities and stage the bailout as well for emergency and drop lines with emergency bailout, etc. Big complex machine that, by the way, still are very efficient if used in a proper way. But all of us, we all thought about the bailout rig that could be, really another further step to increase our safety for people who must be self-sufficient in the water, because we have to make a big difference between commercial and sport diving. If you are a
Right.
commercial divers, you're always they have standards of safety that we cannot even reach far from, because
Right.
they
Because
have
of
such saturations systems. They have every seconds of the dive of those people is monitored from, so we are different, and we have other problems, and we have to be self-sufficient. So a secondary rebreather has always attracted everybody. It was like automatic. Okay, we have the first, why not a second rebreather? I did a bit of experience with bailout rebreather with some other machine, and it didn't work for me. I wasn't good enough to make it work. I wasn't confident enough to make it work until you guys came out with this side mount rebreather, and more than even the machine itself, the mechanical aspect, I think that the huge step that you guys have made is the electronics aspect, because it was difficult to have a rebreather that could match at a certain point exactly the profile of your dive. So until you had to leave the primary rebreather. So we all had secondary rebreather, but we had to have external instruments to run these secondary rebreathers. Now, you guys have done a software that has done the difference, and no one had thought about it before. So this for me has been, one of the key factors that convinced me that this could be the correct tool, the correct weapon to fight against an emergency in those kind of profiles. Plus, an auto-contained diving equipment. I've tried other side-mount rebreathers, but they all had connection system, things that. Now
Right.
I'm a
Cylinders.
off. Yeah, exactly. I'm a stupid guy. Okay, I'm not that clever. No, seriously, I'm not that clever. I'm a quite basic guy, and I know I make mistake pretty easy. So for me, when we are all sitting on the sofa and we talk about configuration and things you connect, you disconnect, all cool. But when you are in the water out there, the world is concentrated through these things, okay? And you are surrounded by water. So we must make things pretty easy and straightforward. We all have knowledge about diving accident, and we all know that sometimes accident occur, because we do stupid mistakes, which doesn't allow us to touch bailouts or rebreather or bailout. So the first thing that you have to concentrate, even if you have a bailout rebreather, is to be focused on what's happening around you. What is the problem that you are facing. The bailout rebreather is a fantastic, as I said before, weapon, especially the one that you guys have made, because it's not only available for myself, but I can disconnect it and pass it to my mate. So try to imagine in an expedition when you have groups of people diving and you have more than one units like this. It means that obviously the guy must have a little of experience on it, but I can just throw on the table, and I'm talking about, extreme dives. I got people that could breathe even from a straw of that you have from McDonald's, if they had to for emergency. So if I can throw you this, if I can throw you this bailout rebreather by the side, you're gonna breathe through it. So something that you can easily disconnect, pass it to someone, leave it somewhere, again, is another plus for the product. So the software itself. The fact that it does impact on your configuration in a very mild way compared to 3, 4, 5 S80s who are dragging you. We all know that current is a problem. More equipment you put on, less movement you can do, less easier mistakes you can do. So again, I am like turn on and off. So I have to make things simple, and I think that the bailout rebreather is a fantastic tool. But don't get me wrong, when you have a bailout rebreather, it means you have the procedure doubled twice. So some of the figures that I saw and I presented in the Baltic Tech were saying that we have a certain amount of accident per year, fatalities per year, okay? Which means from a statistic point of view, and please forgive me if I talk about fatalities like numbers, but I need to do it like this way to be...
to take it.
Yeah, those are people, and I know very well. But because we have to look at figures, we know that there is a certain amount of fatalities, or at least the curve shows us that is quite constant, which means that we have a less fatality percentage, because by the numbers of companies in the world producing rebreathers, and by the second hand that is not throwing to the bin, but has a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth life, means that we have more and more rebreather divers. So the impacting percentage probably reduce itself. What scares me more, and what scares a lot, is that the reasons of this accident are still the same, which means that at the first places, we have certain attitude of divers. Oxygen sensors, for example, is one of those one that you feel like, nah, it's not true. It's not. No, you don't tell me that again. That guy had 3 oxygen sensors of 3 different brands. One was from 1938, the other one was from 1945.
2000, 20
Yeah,
years old. Like, oh my God.
yeah, and that guy. Gary has told us this very, very clearly. The guy that leaves from his house to go diving, he doesn't think that he's going to die. He doesn't want to die.
Nobody's
So,
planning on dying. Yeah.
so if you have 2 rebreathers, and this was why I talked about these things, and in your case, a Liberty rebreather, you got 4 plus 4 oxygen
Right.
sensors, which
Beat
makes
sensors
8
a year.
oxygen sensors that you have to change, which is quite a lot amount of money. But safety is not something that you can trade with money. You want to fly on an airplane that is maintained in a certain way. You can't pay $12 a plane ticket. Sorry, it's like this.
Yeah.
You have to stop fighting. You can't have cheap stuff and the best technology that NASA can produce. So people,
Right. There's that, it costs money. It's like, what are you going to invest in what it costs to do the type of things that you're trying to do safely,
yeah, people who wants to have this level of safety, this margin, this type of equipment that is a win-win equipment, must also accept what comes along with it, which means that pre-dive is twice. Post-dive, when you go home, you don't throw those 2 units like that. And by the way, the bailout rebreather that probably has just gone for a nice swim and come back for a nice swim has used a certain amount of diluent, has used a certain amount of oxygen, even if it was not used.
and absorb. Yeah.
And you have to consider it as I have to refill probably those tanks, because those tanks are, in this case, 2 liter tanks. So they suffer, especially the diluent does suffer if you go deep. So there are certain rules that must be considered. So I strongly recommend, and I mean it, tools like this ones and units like this ones for this type of dives, but to accept also what comes with it. So you have to spend a lot of money, and this we all know about it. Maintenance will be more expensive. Preparation will be more complex, but I like to have this level of margins. And I started to dive to do my first dive in Croatia with Gabriele Paparo, a fantastic diver from the Italian Navy. Gabriele not only is a brother, but is a very experienced diver. And with
Oh
Gabriele,
yeah. Some fantastic stuff.
oh yeah, and I started to move my first steps with the idea of a bailout rebreather. So don't get me wrong, I was carrying one S80 of bottom gas, because when you have to, what's going on, what should I do? Bailout, boom, regulator. It must be the correct one, at maximum depth. And so I started to breathe the side mount rebreather at depth, at considerable depth. We are talking about more than 100 meters of water. I turned it on. And by the way, it's stupid, but when you have to remove your rebreather from your mouth and you put something else in your mouth, it's stupid. But when you are in the dark and you are in 120 meters, you are diving a new wreck, to do this and put this, it's something that you really don't feel like doing it. And it's all psychological, and this gives you an idea of the human factor is
You can do it in the pool all day, but when you're in the back of a cave or bottom of the ocean, it's not something you take easy, and you have to be so quick.
And Garrett, what will he say to us? Is it all about human factors? Yes, it is.
Yep.
It's always water. If I have to do this, it's just that the pressure on my brain is a lot. So I did lots of tests diving with lots. I did some tests on myself with the bailout rebreather, using it at every dive. Don't get me wrong. You don't just carry it around as an S80. You must use it on the way down. Once you get to the bottom, sometimes on the way up. I want to be sure that my my secret weapon is always efficient and ready to go. So you guys have done a great job. So I own you guys. Another piece of um, my my knowledge in Rebreather, because the technology that you guys have introduced with this specific software that runs the Rebreather as a bailout, and the compact, breathable system. Because, sorry, open and close brackets, some side mount rebreather that I've tested were just awful to breathe, and there's no other
Mhm.
words to describe them. This side mount rebreather, that for me was awful from the beginning, because I thought, is a side mount rebreather is not going to breathe well as the normal back mount counterline or front mount counterline. Not
Mhm.
true.
Right,
It
right.
was a complete new generation of bailout rebreather and side mount rebreather that breathes very, very well and comfortably.
Right. And it's such, I always considered it to be such a paradigm shift in the approach of the bailout rebreather, because of the intelligence behind the unit, and that it knows that it's in a bailout rebreather setting. And so and that's how we develop the technology, or the industry develops the technology by, you know, okay, 1 point forward, and then now, like, that'll set the way that other units are designed and done, and then we'll either find out that it works out very well, or you find out that it's kind of a little bit more problematic, as time will tell. But it seems to be on the right path, and it seems to be doing really well.
Let's say that what works today, tomorrow will always be perfectioned, or it can be, it can be better in future. But
Right.
I can tell you that as a sideman review, that in terms of the layout of the unit, the way it configures the unit, the electronics, and the reliability of the unit itself is embarrassed. I mean, the Liberty rebreather is like a bloody hammer. You can use it really to hammer the things on the, it's a solid machine with a lot of
Hmm.
technology. So there are many other solid units around out there, but this combines solid constructions and solid building with lots of sophisticated technology, which is something that is not that common today's day. So I know I teach with Divesoft, so I'm an ambassador, and I'm involved into it. So people could just argue that I'm saying these things, but the truth is that I use it in my dives, and I think is a good product. It's working pretty well. So keep
Yeah,
on
and
stuff like
same.
that, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's I know, for me, before I joined the company, it was very much like I bought my own unit, I dove my unit, and I I knew a lot of the people from the company before I was working with the company, and so I know that they listen to the feedback, and it's very important. Good and bad. Positive feedback and negative feedback is very important. And these live streams, I like to talk about, like, oh, what's your idea of the units, but it's not, there's no, we're not doing sales pitches, but we're just talking about the equipment, and all the different aspects of it, and how does this equipment help you out in the diving that you're doing. And I think that information is great for everyone to see and hear. So
Well, I can see. I was reading some comments of these guys. That we have people like Gary Dallas, like Pete Mesley. And these guys, they know much more about me about diving, and they are fantastic. And they a lot of them agree about these things that you guys have done, because obviously they have used it, and Gary with the side mount is a heavyweight champion, and he's using it. It can tells you, the he's not a guy that he would use. I mean, all these peoples, they have great experience. They don't use this diving equipment because someone comes up and say, "Hey, look, I give you 1 tub of soft lime if you use my rebreather."
right, right, right.
So I see that I don't have to convince anybody. People have to just investigate, because I always say to people,
Go
when they
dive.
ask you, which one is the best rebreather, and I said. Uh, I don't have an answer for the best rebreather that you can have around there. I can tell you depend on what do you expect from a rebreather, what do you want from a rebreather. Sometimes the best thing would be to just mix lots of technology out there in only one unit, but philosophy, strategies are different from every company. So
Right.
as a person that, sorry.
Yeah, it's not that simple. I mean, I like the green light. That's why like a Christmas tree in the kid.
I agree with you.
So, well, it's been fantastic having you. I think we can probably do a second episode soon. So, have you back on another day. But thank you so much for joining us, and so it was a real pleasure.
Thank you to you and to all the Divesoft team for this invitation. Thank you for all the people who have followed us. And
Thanks for everyone that tuned in today. Yep.
Say again.
Yeah, no, it's always happy to see everyone tuning in and saying hello and everything. It's great to see everyone joining us.
Yeah, fantastic. Hello to everybody, and thank you for joining. I think that Pete Mesley, I was chatting with him, and for the people over there, New Zealand, Australia, and those countries, it's really very, very early in the morning. I said, Pete, don't you have anything to do at 6 o'clock in the morning than just watching us talking on the TV? I hope he kept the computer on one side just to make a bit of lights while he was doing something else. Ciao, Pete. Thanks a lot for the invitation. Enjoy diving, and more of all, stay safe, which is the most important thing.
Right. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.